What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? 𝐒𝐤𝐢𝐚𝐥𝐬 here, and today we are talking about gear. But not in the good way, the bad way, as in I bought something and it was not a good purchase. The Canon M50. It sucked for me, but you'll have to wait a second to hear from our sponsor, and then you'll know. What is that? We don't have a sponsor? We got like 350 subscribers. We're a big deal. So back in March, I took a little day hike trip with my girlfriend to Rocky Mountain National Park, and with the intention of really prioritizing photos, but taking some B-roll footage to wet my feet again for filming stuff for YouTube. I only took the photography camera though, so there was no intention of filming myself while I took photos, which is probably for the best considering it was ridiculously windy at the time and it wouldn't have worked anyways. But when I got back home, I knew that I wanted to get a camera that I could film myself with, that I could do photography adventures with, and be able to explain to you guys what I'm doing, what photo I'm taking, the settings and all that stuff. So I started to do some research, and I came around to the Canon M50 because I had some pretty strict criteria, and the biggest one was budget. I really didn't want to spend that much money. The other thing is I wanted to have reliable autofocus and a flip out screen so I could see what I was filming. That's pretty much it, but that also narrowed it down significantly. There's only a few options, and the Canon M50, from all things that I watched, vloggers that were still using it, seemed pretty decent and seemed to knock and check all the boxes that I wanted to check. I should mention I knew all of the restrictions of the Canon M50 going into it, like poor low light performance, weak dynamic range, super crop 4K, not very many high frame rate capabilities, but I thought I could get away with just filming a lot of the B-roll with my 5D Mark IV. And I found out that that was not the case, on top of some other roadblocks. So I made a list. I have 6 things of why this camera sucked for me. The first thing that sucks about this camera that I didn't know is that there's no shutter priority mode. And that means that I either have to shoot in full manual or fully automatic. Now, technically in the manual setting, you can set the ISO to auto, but I don't know about you, but I don't want to be sitting at f11, get to a darker scene, and it just boosts my ISO into nothing instead of just dropping my aperture. All right, so here's an example, and first, let me apologize for the phone video. Couldn't find my micro HDMI cable to plug it into my Ninja so I could record the screen and all that. It doesn't matter, it's just a quick video. We start off in a dark space and it's at 1/100th of a second shutter at f8. I raise the camera up, and instead of changing the aperture, it changes the shutter speed. And it creates this really weird jitter because it completely breaks the 180 rule, and it just makes my film, video look really digital. And I just can't stand that. And what I really don't understand is the camera has shutter priority. Like the camera, it's right here. It has shutter priority mode. Why can't I use it in video? I don't understand, Canon. Let me use it in video. All right, so the second thing that sucked about this camera, and it's not really its fault, I already knew going in, is that the image quality and dynamic range of it is just not very good. You absolutely, definitely should not compare the 5D Mark IV footage to the M50 because it's not fair. But with that said, I'm gonna do it anyways, but for a reason. And that's because I had both these cameras on me. And if I have the choice to film with the footage that the 5D Mark IV can get or the M50, I'm just always gonna choose the 5D Mark IV. The only time I can't use it is when I'm shooting the actual photos. So I just found myself switching the microphone back and forth and having to do all that just because the perfectionist in me always wanted to use the better image quality. And I was hoping the M50 would be close enough, but it just wasn't there. The third thing that sucks about this camera is the LCD screen refresh rate changes based off of whatever shooting mode I'm in. So if I'm in 24p or if I'm in 60p, the refresh rate seems to change on the LCD screen. I'm gonna put up an example of this. Here it is in 60 FPS, and it looks decent. But then when I put it in 24 FPS, it looks laggier, and I don't know why. I'm assuming it's because autofocus is enabled at 24p and it's not enabled at 60p, and it's too overloaded at 24p with autofocus, and so the LCD screen goes down to like 10 FPS. I really don't know, but it really bugged me because that's the format I'm shooting in the most. And again, this is something I could probably look past if it was one of its only quirks, but with everything else, it pushed it over the edge, and I'm glad to never have to deal with it again. All right, so the fourth thing that sucks about this camera is the low light performance, which again, I already knew about, but man, I didn't know it was this bad. I'm pretty sure my phone takes better low light video than this does. And that might not be an issue for a lot of people, but for a landscape photographer like myself, blue hour, that hour before sunrise and after sunset, is crucial, especially if I'm trying to show you where I'm going and the environments I'm in. And if you can't see anything, it really detracts from what I'm trying to do on this channel, which is create videos that make you feel like you're there, that you're with me taking those photos. I know that when I watch videos of adventure photography and stuff like that, it's nice because I'm just sitting on the couch relaxing in it, and I feel like I'm in the environment, at least when it's done well. And that's what I want to bring to you guys. And having the camera just lack that capability is not ideal, especially in dark formats. But even when I was standing here and it was complete daylight outside, the background's completely blown out and you can't see anything. And it really just detracts from the feeling of, involvement, of envelopment, of you being there with me taking those photos. So even though the low light performance I knew it was going to be bad, I didn't know it was going to be as bad as it was. All right, so the fifth thing I really hate about this camera is the controls. They're tiny. They're itty bitty. Like I can put my thumb up in front of all of them. I can accidentally hit every button on this thing. And I know that that's kind of the nature of a smaller, compact, cheaper camera. And it does have the saving grace that it has a touchscreen. But sometimes I don't have both hands to hold the camera and change the settings on the touchscreen. And the biggest thing for me, especially when it comes to shooting photography or video, is that I just want my equipment to work for me. I don't want it to get in my way of doing what I want to do. And having the controls be that small and just not be as intuitive as I would like them, it just got in my way a lot. And it's one of the reasons the M50, even if it had better dynamic range and better low light performance, I think would still not be a winner for me. All right, so the final thing about this camera, and it's absolutely the biggest issue, was the build quality. And again, I know it's a budget camera and I know it's inexpensive, but after my second trip, this right here, the tripod mount, I took it off, stress fractures everywhere. Second trip, and you'll probably see them on your screen now. The thing about this camera is that it's supposed to be lightweight. I can just throw it around a little bit, put it on my Peak Design clip and just be able to hike. And that's what I did. Second trip I took, put it on my Peak Design clip, filmed a vlog for my girlfriend's hiking channel, came back, and there was just cracks all at the bottom. And that's caused multiple issues. First of all, when I put it on a tripod, it now has flex, meaning it is not securely on the tripod. Second of all, it doesn't have any structural integrity anymore. I don't feel comfortable just putting it in the Peak Design clip, unless it's for this sweet B-roll, right? Yeah, YouTube. But I don't feel like I have any faith in it anymore. Just look at it, it is destroyed, and that's after 3 trips. And I don't know what happened. I didn't abuse this thing. I didn't drop it. I didn't over tighten the clip. I just put it on there, walked around with it, and that's what happened. So I have contacted Canon. I am gonna send it in for warranty, considering it's still under its 1-year warranty. And I'm hoping they should replace it or do something with it to fix that issue. But when I get it back, I think I'm just gonna cut my losses and sell the camera. I already ordered an X-T4, it'll be here tomorrow. And again, those cameras are not comparable. This one is $500 and the X-T4 is like $1,700. They're not equivalent cameras. But at the end of the day, maybe that's what I should have bought in the first place because of all the things I ended up finding out. Speaking of which, is anyone out there looking for a slightly and gently used Canon M50, possibly even new? If so, leave a comment down below. All right, so jokes aside, please keep in mind that my biggest issues with this camera is that realistically, I always had a better camera right next to it that I could film with. That is not an option for most people. Most people don't have a 5D Mark IV that also have a Canon M50, and they're trying to compare the two. If you're looking for a vlogging camera or just a camera to start out with, I still think this is a good recommendation, barring the tripod issue. If that's just only on my unit and it's not a widespread thing, which I have to imagine it is because there's so many people out there with this camera, I still think I would recommend it. But for me particularly, it just wasn't what I wanted. And that was partially my own fault. Secondly, the tripod mount just disintegrating is a pretty big deal. So If you made it this far, thank you for watching. Be on the lookout for a lot of X-T4 content coming in the future. I get it in tomorrow. I'm super excited. I haven't had a new camera in years. Well, I guess technically I had this thing, but you saw how that went. Anyways, thank you for watching. Let me know what you guys want to see related to the X-T4. And until next time, peace. Nice. This is an M50, right? It's not a 50M, right? M50. Ooh. Would have been quite embarrassing if the whole time this thing is called the 50M, but